Hello world, welcome to the 227th Climate Change Emergency Protest. It is April 7th, 2023. I'm not on the Gettysburg battlefield. This is around the second day's part of the battle that occurred July 2nd, 1863. So that was a long time ago. But what I've noticed, and I've been living here for a long time, like decades, probably since 1974. I've been in the area other than college. And so however many years that is. But what I'm recognizing for the first time ever is a beaver lodge. I don't know if you can see it, and it made me smile for once. Something good happening, or at least a change in environment. So he's created a dam at the end, and no one's noticing it, of course. But I find it amazing. And this thing's been busy as a beaver. I assume there's a male and female here with little kits or whatever they're called. But they're geoengineering everything and turning everything into its own paradise. And it's changing the environment, of course, but I don't see anything wrong with it. What the heck? So anyways, I'm out here on the second day's battle, as I said, and up on the hill, you can see, I'm giving a panoramic view here, is Little Round Top. And it's very famous for the 20th Maine defense on the far right over here, far left of the Union troops and far right of the Confederates, which were the Southern troops that attacked that position. And it was a daunting task to defend it, and they had very few defenders at the time to thwart the Southern attack. And eventually the 20th Maine on the far right over here ran out of ammunition, and they did a thing called a bayonet charge, and it worked. It was their last resort as to how to get things done, and it was a desperation move, and it did work, and it saved the whole unit, because if the Southerners, the Confederates, had gotten this hill here, they would have been able to roll up the whole Union line with artillery and all, and that would have dislodged the Union, caused the Union to lose the battle most likely, and retreat back towards Washington, D.C., and would have changed the whole course of the Civil War. So it's these moments in time that can actually change the course of things, and you don't realize when it's happening how important each person is. And but the 20th Maine, each of those guys there are the saviors of the whole Union cause, and otherwise we had to split into two countries, North and South. So there are others involved, of course, but they had more reinforcements. This is the far right edge of the Union line, the far left edge, actually, as I'm looking on the right, that actually changed the course of history of the United States. So you too can change things, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but I'm also going to talk about some issues going on with friends and family and all. I'm kind of very depressed about what's happening or not happening, and catching flack from all ends now, and it's sad to watch. I'm not mad or angry. It's the way things are, and I'm dismayed, and it's leading to a lot of depression here on my part. I'm battling through it because I have my running and others, my wife and everything, because we see eye to eye on things. But it's very difficult to watch this happen and to know what's coming for everyone, and no one's willing to do anything about it. So I'm going to show you a chart. Again, this chart is holding more and more true based on the amount of tornadoes and all the catastrophes happening around the United States. This is called the TikTok chart. I came up with this myself. I'll hold it up in front. I'm going to run over here with people touring the battlefield. So it's a TikTok scale. I called it that. It's the International Climate Change Table of Catastrophe. I came up with this myself. It's called the McHenry scale. And you can zoom in on this or talk about it later or whatever. But it seems to be holding true right now where we are at. And of course, we got a lot of wind all of a sudden. We are at 1.2 degrees Celsius increase since the start of their so-called Industrial Revolution. They're saying, the IPCC is saying the Industrial Revolution happened in 1880. This battle happened in 1863. You cannot have mechanized warfare with weapons and everything else without industrial issues happening at that time. So the real Industrial Revolution happened in 1750. It doesn't matter. Things are happening right now at 1.2 degrees. And it's catastrophic things. And I see a doubling of catastrophes as we have an increase in temperatures for every 1/10 of a degree. So it's not looking great. and this is where we're headed, and it's going to be pretty bad. And if you ever want to see the scale up close, I don't know if I'm zooming in right or not, but I see a doubling right now where something like a 4-time level catastrophe, what we used to have, and it's pretty severe. But we're going to double up to 8, 16, 32, 64, and you get the gist of that as to how it increases. So this is a graph I came up with here. Is based on the atomic scientists and the doomsday clock. But I added my own little fire, and we're very close to midnight. They said we're at 90 seconds to midnight, meaning we're the closest we've ever been to extreme catastrophe as far as happening around the world. And it's a 3 thing happening. I talked about that 3 reasons why, and one of them is climate change. So I'm going to get on with the talk, though, because this is going to be a doozy, hopefully. Right now, as I said, this is the number 227 climate change emergency protest, and it's April 7th, 2023. Next week will be number 228. That'll be on April 14th, 2023. I'm going to stand with my back to the wind because we're going to end up having an issue here with the wind coming into the microphone. So Earth Day is on April 22nd, 2023, and there's protests around the world, especially in London and Boston on April 21st. Washington, D.C. is having a climate change protest on April 22nd. So that's 14 days from now it all starts happening. And this is our last best chance. Many of you are unaware of what's happening. Please share this message around. But many of you are unaware as to what's happening concerning climate change and how dire the situation is, and you won't even know it even happened. By the time it starts happening, you won't know why it happened or where it came from or anything like that. But this is our last best chance to solve the issue of climate change, and I'll tell you why in a second here. But right now, I've had friends and family, especially family members, putting a lot of pressure on me and my wife, especially on me, to be positive and don't be so intense on things, and to have a positive attitude to what's happening. I would love that. I would love a positive attitude to what's happening if others would join in and start doing things. But it's not happening, especially here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There's only the 2 of us doing things, as far as I know, as far as protests go and things like that. It should be county-wide happening. I should have influenced friends and family. I can't even influence family members to have a conversation on both sides of the family. And, I've been told all sorts of stuff, and it's not so good. It's not a good feeling. It's hard to deal with when you know what's happening, and they contend they know what's happening, and they have no idea what's happening, how severe the situation is, and they don't want to talk about it. So if you're not willing to talk about it, not willing to listen, then you can't know what's happening. It's impossible. So we have the tick-tock clock, we have the time's running out clock, and my contention is we're no longer in a climate change situation. So understand this, we're no longer in a climate change situation. We're in a catastrophic situation. And by that I mean it is a catastrophe that is I have it written down, no longer, it's a catastrophe, a failure of the biosphere supporting all life on Earth. So there's no more support. We're starting to lose it, all life on Earth as far as support goes. And see, this is crazy. Ever since Ken Burns did his talk, we've got tourists year-round. It's insane. It used to be an off time for about 6 months where I could go out for a run on the battlefield. I wouldn't see a car in an 8-mile run. Now it's constant flow. It's a nice place to be here, but it's kind of not fun because there's too much traffic. So anyways, it's a catastrophic failure of the entire biosphere right now, and you can't live without the biosphere, and that's where we're headed. And I'm contending that climate change is no longer the issue. The issue is the failure of the entire biosphere. So, right now we've had, and by catastrophe I mean, this is just an example. It's happened in the last month or two. We've had 76 people die from tornadoes, at least, hundreds of injured. They don't talk about that on the news. 13 dead in the mountains of the Sierras in California, at least 13 dead because of excessive snow, and then floods and landslides in California. But I'm going to be positive here. So I'm not going to talk about the following. I'm not going to talk about the Greenland ice sheets on the edge of failure due to carbon dioxide rise and temperatures following suit. And I'm not going to talk about the Antarctic ice shelves under threat of collapse due to the oceans being excessively warm. I'm not going to talk about the Thwaites Glacier. I'm being positive. The Thwaites Glacier cracking and in peril of collapsing there, which represents 3 to 4 feet of sea level rise. I'm not going to talk about the Brazilian Amazon rainforests that are already 17% gone, and at 20%, most likely the entire rainforest will fail, and you'll see it turn into a savanna real quick. And basically right now they're a net emitter of carbon dioxide. Everyone thinks they're pulling in oxygen or putting out oxygen. The amount of oxygen they're putting out is failing now, and it's actually they're emitting more carbon dioxide than oxygen. I'm not going to talk about, and this is just being positive, I'm not going to talk about the ocean's heat being the hottest ever. I'm not going to talk the aerosol masking effect saving all life on Earth right now, the pollution in the environment, because when we clean up the environment, which we will as electrification comes in, and we need to do that, but as electrification comes in, the aerosol masking effect disappears, meaning the sunlight will come in, hit the ground, and then the heat from that will not be able to escape into space the way it does. It won't be a balance because the excessive amount of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and other gases in the air, and also water vapor, which is a huge gas, heat trapping gas. I won't talk about the IPCC, the United Nations, projecting that the temperatures will be rising up to 3.2 degrees Celsius. Right now we're 1.2 degrees Celsius above industrial times. They're saying it's going to go up 3.2. Well, they're extremely conservative. That's an agreed upon amount by all the nations of the world. So we are well above that, and we're in danger of going into 5, 6, 10, 16 degrees Celsius. But I won't talk about that. I'm trying to be positive here. So we're at 1.2 right now. I won't talk about the Willow Project, which the Biden administration authorized in Alaska, which is decades of cranking out oil in Alaska that's going to happen. I won't talk about the life up there being in jeopardy as a result of that, and all the roads going in, the airports, the pebble highways, the pebble mines, things like that. I won't talk about the effects on the atmosphere of the Willow Project and how it's basically a life-ending event. I won't talk about the Gulf of Mexico leases that the Biden administration just did. I won't talk about the fact that the Biden administration issued 2,600 drilling permits in the last 2 years, which is 300 more than what Trump did in his first 2 years. He said he wouldn't ever allow any drilling on federal lands and public lands, and he's already authorized 2,600 drilling permits. I'm not talking about that. I'm being positive now. I'm not going to talk about the North Sea being explored by Norway and Great Britain as far as getting oil out of the North Sea. I'm not going to talk about the USA being the #1 producer of oil in the world and still going up and leading climate change in talks. No way, because if they were, they wouldn't be drilling and authorizing new drilling. Get the point here. I'm being positive here. I won't talk about China doing 2 coal plants per week coming online, new coal plants. They're adding 2 new coal plants a week. Last year they did that. I won't talk about New Zealand. This is an issue nobody knows about. I won't talk about New Zealand having no glaciers in 6 years. Okay, that's not me coming up with this stuff. I'm being positive now, okay? I'm not going to talk about this stuff. I'm not going to talk about the 350 million people right now starving to death right now worldwide. I'm not going to talk about the island nations going underwater, the Solomon Islands, Maldives, Tuvalu, Marshall Islands, Nauru, and Kiribati. I won't talk about that. Okay, I won't talk about the algae/seaweed 5,000 mile long Congo line going towards Florida, and it's going to choke off western Florida with seaweed, who knows how deep, and it gives off arsenic as a byproduct and also methane as it degrades and dies. I won't talk about the Atlantic Ocean being excessively hot. I won't talk about the Gulf of Mexico being excessively hot. I won't talk about Europe being lack of precipitation and rain and snow. I won't talk about the fact that Switzerland's considering that they're going to run out of water soon. I won't talk about the Basque region, being in extreme drought and having fires right now. I won't talk about northern Italy not having water, and also in danger of the Alps falling down due to the collapse of the permafrost. Once the permafrost goes, the rocks are not held together, and then you're going to see massive amounts of avalanches as far as rocks go. I'm not going to talk about the permafrost worldwide and northern part of the world around the Arctic region, where methane, once it starts thawing, will be given up as CO4, CH4, and I won't talk about nitrous oxide being given off as a byproduct as well, and also carbon dioxide. I won't talk about that as a greenhouse gas, and probably going to cause a jump in temperatures of a significant amount. And I'm being positive here. Just keep in mind, family members and friends, I'm being positive, okay? I'm being really positive. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the El Nino, possibly a super El Nino, causing a spike in temperature up to zero point 0.8 degrees Celsius as far as the IPC, the United Nations, is concerned. So it's going to go from 1.2 degrees Celsius increase to 2 degrees Celsius increase. And it could happen within a period of 6 months once that happens. That's just with an El Nino. That's the oceans venting off more heat because it's been retaining heat, and eventually it'll give off that heat. It'll also give off the byproduct of carbon dioxide, but I'm not going to talk about that. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the aerosol masking effect. I'm not going to talk about the permafrost melting and causing a heat spike. I'm not going to talk about storms, floods, drought, snows, heat waves, fires worldwide. They're going to be happening even more so as time goes on. I'm not going to talk about we just hit a new record high in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, 423 parts per million. I'm not going to talk about that and how there's a 10 or 20-year delay in carbon dioxide and temperature catching up to that level. I'm not going to talk about we're baking in a ridiculous amount of heat that's going to be coming our way. I'm not talking about that. I'm not going to talk about the 417 nuclear reactors worldwide that are online right now, or I'm not going to talk about the 417 nuclear reactors worldwide, or the 28 nuclear reactors that are in long-term storage. I'm not going to talk about requiring maintenance on those nuclear facilities forever, because uranium-238, or 235 or whatever, 238 has a half-life of 4.5 billion years. So if humans are around in that time, 4.5 billion years, the uranium will have a half-life, and it still is radioactive, because half of it's still radioactive, if you understand that. Now, I'm being positive about things, so just keep in mind there's a positive outlook on things. So I'm not talking about any of that stuff that I just talked about. Okay, so the Earth Day protests are coming up. You know, it's great to do gardening and reading books and thinking pure thoughts and meditation, kumbaya, and all that stuff, but it's not going to get things done. Okay, it won't work. It won't get the politicians to change at all. They rely on people just sitting back and doing nothing and letting them have roughshod over what's going on. This is a public that doesn't, a self-absorbed public that doesn't want to be engaged in anything. It's too scary. It's you're too this, you're too that. It's like, this is insanity going on right now. You're leaving the politicians. It's like letting a 4-year-old loose in a candy shop. You don't do that. So there are protests. The only thing that works are protests to get things done. It's amazing that people can't figure out to drive by me. I'm on the edge of the road. The camera's on the other edge of the road. Just drive. Anyways, so protests are the only thing that works. We have psychopathic politicians in charge. They're committing murder. This is a genocide of all life on Earth. This is a crime against humanity and all life on Earth right now. When you're authorizing new projects and things like that, when you know very well that every time you authorize something, it's just a nail in the coffin. Things are going to get worse and worse and worse, and we're not going to survive this. I guarantee you we're not going to come out of this alive. You know, whether I die before the end of my time, up for grabs. Kids that are in their 20s and 30s, no freaking chance of getting up to my age. There's no way possible. So they will not change. The politicians will not change unless protests occur. And I'm relying on all you that are listening to this to spread the word to your friends and family. I've been trying. It's not working in Gettysburg. I might as well just spit in the wind and do nothing, because right now it's not working. No one has said they want to go down. There were 2 or 3 busloads that went around when Trump came in office because they were worried about him grabbing a certain anatomy on a woman's body, which is great. Go down there and protest. Then there was a Black Lives Matter. I stood on the square 2 times with the Black Lives Matter group because the black people were being abused by the police. But you know what? This is all related, because you won't survive this, and you need to get together as a group. All groups need to get together. Shootings. You know, there's a linkage between shootings and children and whether children are going to survive climate change. People aren't seeing that. You know, I made a suggestion on the internet about that. Chirp, chirp, chirp. I might as well just talk to myself about a lot of times. I'm not getting upset, though. I'm being positive, okay? Really positive thoughts. So things will not change unless protests occur. The threat of social unraveling occurs, you know, if that happens, and the politicians are scared of that. You know, that social unraveling will happen if protests occur. And then this is the future for them, is what they're seeing, based on the number of people showing up. Right now, you're still going to have social unraveling occurring, but people are not willing to protest. They're too busy watching their golf matches or doing whatever people do, playing their computer games. College kids make no sense to me at all. None. College, anyone under age 30 is making no sense to me at all right now. The high school kids are getting it. They're getting out and protesting about the shootings, but they don't know anything about climate change and what's coming their way. And you know what? College kids, if you have any friends that have college kids or family, tell them to get off their asses and start doing something. That's how we got the Vietnam War stopped when I was a kid, and college kids were massively involved and got things changed. When I was a 21-year-old, I drove myself from this little small area, or from college, I can't remember which, but I drove all the way to New York City by myself and got engaged and went to the protest there at Central Park, and there were 1 million people there. And protests don't work. Bullshit. Because what happened after that then, within the next 6 years, they had to start treaties with the Soviet Union and the United States, which curtailed the use of nuclear weapons as far as manufacturing. They put a lid on it and said, this is all we're going to keep, all we're going to have. We're not going to keep expanding nuclear weapons. Now these numbnuts in charge have gotten out of the START treaty, and we're back to where we started in 1982. So the reason why protests do work is for that reason. The reason why a disengaged public screws up is they let the politicians have their way and things start getting out of control. And that's why with the Ukrainian issue, you had NATO expanding into the former Soviet Union area, which made Russian nuts. Russia invades illegally and does crimes against humanity, but they were provoked to the point that they felt they were getting nailed to the wall because they're being encircled. And if Mexico and Canada joined up with China right now, we'd have an issue like that with that in our country. So it's the same issue. Doing what Russia did is horrendous and wrong, but this is what happens. And my point is, a disengaged public that does not pay attention, politicians get out of control just like a 4-year-old does in a chocolate factory, and bad things happen as a result of that. So protests do work. Gandhi did his protest in the 1940s. India became independent. The Vietnam War, college kids got engaged and forced everyone else to start thinking about it, and then it caused the rest of the public to get involved and take a side. If you sit back and do nothing, you are part of the system then. Silence is complicity with the system. That's Martin Luther King saying that. Okay, so you had a nuclear situation. I talked about nuclear in 1982, which caused the START Treaty. And you had Martin Luther King with the We Shall Overcome movement in the 1960s civil rights movement. And a spinoff from that after he got assassinated, or around that time, was the Black Panthers movement. And that got the government in ire, and they started arresting Black Panthers people and breaking up the leaders. So it's this commonality that should not have stopped. The Black Panthers were doing a good job with the inner cities, and now look at them. Just keep going the way they are, and they're not coming out of their situation because it's a disengaged public. Inner cities need to start protesting again, too, for many reasons. And climate change is a big one, where they're going to be the ones most abused initially concerning climate change. The secret with these protests, and people go, oh, protests don't work. Yeah, they don't if you do a one and done, or once a month, or once every 5 months, or once a year, or not again after your first protest. The secret is constant pressure, being an a-hole, and keeping up the pressure on the politicians and your friends and family to get engaged, and they will. And the secret is constant pressure that gets things done, okay? Anger gets done, okay? It's just the way it is. So you got to get some balls here and start doing something, or not. We can just roll over and get ready to die, because as they said in Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying. So it's get busy protesting and doing something, or get ready to die. You might as well carry your body bag around with you then from then on out. So the 22nd will be in Washington, D.C. My wife and I will be there, I assume, for this whole area. We're the only ones going. Who cares about the planet? Who cares about your kids? Who cares about your grandkids? Who cares about your wife, brother, sister, mother, or anything like that? Just keep going. Everything will be fine. I'm being positive. So after that, there was little hope, after this protest on the 22nd. If millions of people don't turn out, or hundreds of thousands, the government has no reason to change. And it'll take a long, long time till they take it seriously or anything like that. So the politicians will win for now, but they will lose in the long run. The government will collapse eventually. Crisis will occur, and it's just humanity will lose its final death throes. As far as that goes. So my family and friends will win. After this protest on the 22nd, if things haven't changed, I'm going to have a different attitude about things because I've realized then at that point things aren't going to change and no one's willing to step in. And I assume we're the only two from Adams County, Pennsylvania, Gettysburg area to go down to the protest. And that's a shame because I actually care more about your kids than you care about your kids if you're not going. And I love you more than you love yourself. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be April 14th, and that'll be Climate Change Protest Talk number 228. Appreciate you hanging in there. And please plan on going down to Washington, D.C. or to a big city near you and do your climate change protest. See you later.